guys, so I'll be doing my book presentation on here, and the book I chose is called Colors Passing Through Us by Marge Piercy, published in 2003. So I guess we'll start with the background of Marge. Take out my whiteboard here. She's 83. She was born in Detroit, Michigan. She often said that the greatest inspiration of her becoming a poet was her mother. She was very artistic, but they also had a strained relationship. So a good chunk of her life was filled with failed relationships and failing to get published in Chicago and New York and Detroit. But eventually, with her current husband, they moved to Cape Cod, and she took up gardening, which inspired a deep connection to nature because she was able to see the different webs of life. So lots of her poems incorporate nature into that, as well as the different aspects of the love life, and a big part of her identity is being Jewish and being a women's activist. So that's in a lot of her writing, whether it be poetry or novels. She also has commentary about different societal things such as development and war. So those themes come up a lot. Okay, so the book is sectioned off into 6 sections. The first being called Women of Dark Houses. So this one explores her relationship with her mother more, both when her mother's in her youth, as well as her mother passing down knowledge to her mother passing away, and the grieving process behind that. This section also, she has lots of poems that are criticism on the societal constraints that women have been in and are still in. So yeah, women. And so for example, she had a poem dedicated to a ballet dancer with anorexia. She also has a poem about domestic violence in this section. So the next section is called Otherwise, and this focuses on a lot of societal changes. So there's an obvious time elapsing in this section from in the past to now. She loves cats, so she puts her cats in lots of poems. In this section too, she also comments on war, such as Ukraine. There's also a lot of sex in this poem, or in this section, so that's fun. And why is my nose so itchy? I apologize. So the next section is Winter Promises. This is mostly just the different feelings and imagery associated with winter for her. It's less like societal or activist and more just the internal perceptions and feelings of like a changing season. So that section also has lots of nature. The Little Light section is a lot about her Jewish identity. So it's really interesting to me because I had never really read any poem about the Jewish culture or identity, because I feel like the only poems I've encountered with religion are like Christian. So that was really cool to see and read about. And then her 5th section is Colors Passing Through Us, which is the title of the book. And I mean, it's a little obvious, but she uses a lot of color imagery in this section, which I really appreciate. I love colors. And she also explores lust, the routine of love, so like all the different aspects of love, good and ugly. And then her final section is called Rising in Perilous Hope. So throughout the book, she had a motif of images and memory. So this last section kind of wraps it all up with togetherness, evanescence, but also like making eternal memories by writing them in her poems. So those are the sections of the book. I'm going to write down some themes I found really fast and then like splice this video maybe somehow. So because I ran out of whiteboard space. So I'll be right back. Okay, so some things I generally took from her style was most of her poems were 1 to 1.5 pages in length, and her line length was not super short, not very long, kind of just middle of the road, pretty consistent with that. And so she mostly describes feelings through metaphor and imagery and personification, not really ever explicitly describing a feeling. I thought she did a very good job with that, and I'm definitely going to take some notes and inspiration from her. So she also incorporates a lot of people from her life, very specific to her and her life, but then also includes some possibly made-up characters or inspirations from people she's briefly encountered in life. And I really enjoyed that perspective, that like even though I can't really relate to this story or anything, it's cool to see a whole bunch of different perspectives or different events happening. And speaking of events, her poems are very event and scene based, which reminded me a lot of the poems I usually write. It's usually zoned in on a very particular time and feelings associated with that, because I feel like it helps preserve memories. So her main theme that I found was the relationship between self, society, and nature, and how those work together at times, how they oppose each other at times. And that's definitely something that inspires my poetry, so I was really drawn to her with that, and the identity of being a woman, not really knowing where you are in your life at times, but the good and bad feelings associated with everything in the world happening at any given time in your life. So I thought she tied all that together super well. Okay. Now I'm going to read the poem I chose. Let's see. So it's titled Still the Desert, and it is dedicated to a woman named Joy Harjo, who I will talk about after I read this poem. It's in the first section, Woman of Dark Houses. Okay. Daughter of the desert, turning like earth itself between the red sun and the black moon, can you find what you need beneath the tangled skein of freeways? It is all desert still, although the city fathers have sucked water from the mountains to pretend this is a huge oasis with dry rivers of cement. Will the right dates of beginning and ending fall from the palms into your palm? Will the night winds whisper the syllables of your secret name of power? You will sit on the continent's back doorstep and let the restless waters carry to your feet a message not in a bottle, but in a poisoned fish whose scales shine in the dark. Words and music, music and words, gyre from you on the night where cars swarm like locusts and oil wells in yards pump their heart's blood. Your blood runs underground here. Your sacred beauty is dangerous. You bring fire into a tent of plastic wrap. Words are helium. You could ignite them or yourself, a poet kneeling on a dump of used and wasted images. So, when I first read this, I definitely noticed the juxtaposition between nature and development, and then the second person narrative, really bringing a sense of responsibility and even fault to the reader or society in general. And then I looked up who Joy Harjo is, who this is dedicated to, and she is a Native American author, both novelist, poet, playwright, and musician, and she was the first Native American poet, U.S. Poet Laureate. So that definitely helped inform my second reading and made it even more important because it added the Native American cultural commentary in a society that has basically stripped all of that away. And I really thought the inclusion of questions was super powerful in this. It definitely helped you pause and reflect. And I really enjoyed that she was able to make even the parts about waste, about oil rigs and plastic wrap sound very poetic, but also just so much less appealing when it was contrasted with nature imagery like restless waters and mountains and oases. So yeah, and this poem also helped, like, I think I've encountered this a lot where there's kind of a question about allyship and writing, because I think there's a fine line with writing and commenting on how another culture is in society at the time, and I think it's very important to be sensitive about how you're going about writing that, and definitely including that narrative and those people in the process, such as like permission and dedication. So, because that's something I definitely want to explore more with my poems, and I think Marge Piercy does a really good job at being sensitive of that, especially since she is a woman and a Jewish woman in American society too, so she knows a little bit about that. And yeah, so I was wondering if you guys made it this far, like any tips on that too, because I think it is important that people are writing about different issues, whether it be just like environmental or cultural, and how that could be done in the best way, especially if you are in a position of privilege or such. So that was the poem I chose, and that was Marge Piercy's Color Passing Through Us. Thank you for watching. This was kind of stressful, or not, well, this whole week has been stressful, but it was kind of weird to like video chat this to myself. Okay, now I'm just talking. Thank you. Bye guys.